I thought I was just taking my family on a quiet road trip. Snacks packed, GPS set, kids half awake in the back seat. But when my husband leaned over and whispered, "Turn the car around." Now, I knew something was wrong. What I didn't know was that one decision would unravel decades of secrets, force me to confront the truth about my parents, and ultimately change the way I see family, forever. This isn't a story about drama. It's a story about survival. About seeing what you're not supposed to see, and doing what you're not supposed to do. Say no. If you've ever been betrayed by the ones you trusted most, if you've ever had to choose between peace and family, this story is for you. Welcome to ErasedMe, where we speak the truths others try to bury. If stories like this resonate with you, don't forget to hit subscribe. You're not alone. And here, your voice matters. The plan was simple. Load the car, fill the tank, toss in snacks for the kids, and head north for a family reunion that none of us were particularly excited about. It was supposed to be uneventful, mundane, even which, for once, was the goal. We were aiming for normal. That dull kind of normal where nothing blows up, no one cries in a bathroom, and you get through the weekend without reliving childhood trauma. I was the one driving, as usual. My husband's braking habits made my stomach revolt, and if I was going to survive 4 hours in a moving vehicle with 3 kids, I needed some semblance of control. The kids, 5, 7, and 10, were in the back, locked into a never-ending argument about who was touching whose seat. They had matching dinosaur neck pillows, juice boxes already half empty, and a tablet balanced between them streaming some cartoon they'd seen 100 times. It was chaos in miniature form, but the familiar kind. Loud, sticky, harmless. We passed towns with names like Riverbend and Maple Hollow. The sky was that pale gray blue that promised good weather but felt distant. I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel, counting the mile markers, mentally reviewing the turnoffs near the border. We were making decent time. My husband was quiet beside me, sipping lukewarm coffee, scrolling through emails on his phone, occasionally chuckling at some meme I couldn't see. It was the kind of moment that slips by unnoticed, the kind you don't realize you miss until life tilts sideways. I didn't know that in exactly 14 minutes, he'd lean over and say the words that would change everything. Not yet. Right then, it was just a road trip. Just another day. Just a woman driving her family toward a lie she hadn't yet uncovered. We were 15 minutes from the border when it happened. The kids were halfway through a second episode of their cartoon, something about talking animals on a pirate ship, and I was mentally mapping out the next gas station. My husband hadn't said much since we left. He'd been staring out the window, absently chewing on his thumb the way he does when he's deep in thought. I chalked it up to work stress or maybe another passive-aggressive group chat with my family. Then, without turning his head, he whispered, "Turn the car around." It wasn't loud. It wasn't panicked. Just a low, deliberate murmur, like he was trying not to wake something sleeping inside the car. I blinked, unsure I heard him right. "What?" His eyes met mine, serious, steady. "Turn around. Now." There was no anger, no visible fear, just a quiet urgency I couldn't ignore. My grip on the wheel tightened. I laughed nervously, a reflex. "Are you joking? We're almost." "Please. Just turn the car around," he said, firmer this time. And that's when I knew. My husband doesn't panic. I've seen him stay calm during a kitchen fire, a lost passport in France, even when our middle child swallowed a Lego head. His calm is unnerving. So if he was spooked, I wasn't about to argue. I took the next exit. The ramp curved like an escape hatch, the kind you don't realize you need until it's too late. As soon as our tires left the main road, I felt something shift in him. Not relief exactly, more like he'd stopped holding his breath. He slouched slightly in his seat, eyes scanning the side mirror like he expected someone to follow. "Okay," I said finally, "do you want to tell me what's going on?" He shook his head. "Just keep driving." Anywhere but there. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy. Thick with something unsaid and terrifyingly real. The kids started asking questions, and I gave answers that meant nothing. I didn't know where we were going. But I knew we weren't going there. We drove in silence for a long time, maybe 20 minutes, maybe longer. The road narrowed into nothing. Just two faded lines cutting through trees that leaned too close, branches like fingers brushing the windshield. I didn't ask where we were going. I just kept driving like he told me to, pretending we had somewhere to be. The kids had stopped asking questions. They were quiet now, lulled into that strange calm that comes when adults get serious. My stomach felt hollow. Not hungry, just emptied. I glanced at my husband. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched in his lap. He looked like someone bracing for a crash that hadn't come yet. "Take the next turn off," he finally said. It was a dirt road. No signs, no markings. Just a narrow path worn by time and maybe deer. I turned anyway. The gravel popped under the tires like tiny firecrackers. The trees thickened. The sunlight grew thin. "Pull over," he said. He unbuckled his seatbelt and stepped out before I could ask anything. I watched him disappear behind the car. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. My pulse was skipping in odd, jerky patterns. I had this irrational thought. Maybe he found something wrong with the car. Maybe we hit something. Maybe I ran over a branch I didn't see. That would be better. That would be sane. But he came back to the window and said softly, "Can you come out?" There was something in his voice, exhausted, certain. Not afraid. Just done. I stepped out. He led me to the back of the SUV, popped the trunk again, and pointed. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The red duffel bag sat nestled among juice boxes, folded jackets, and the kids' backpacks. It looked so ordinary. Worn handles. A zipper missing a pull. The kind of bag you'd take to soccer practice. He unzipped it slowly, pulled back a layer of clothes, and there it was. Small plastic packets. Tightly wrapped. Stuffed inside a toiletry bag meant for a child. I didn't need to be a detective to know what I was looking at. It wasn't medicine. It wasn't vitamins. It was the kind of thing that made your name appear on the evening news. Family detained at border with controlled substances. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The air around me felt thick, like I was underwater. Every muscle in my chest locked up. I was vaguely aware of birds chirping above us, like the sky hadn't gotten the memo. "They put that in our car," I finally whispered. He nodded. "With the kids in the back seat." Another nod. I looked at the trees, the empty road, the blue above. I wanted to scream, to collapse, to run. Instead, I just stood there, realizing how close we'd come to losing everything. Over a duffel bag. Standing on the side of that dirt road, staring into a bag that could have ended our lives, I felt the ground fall out from beneath me. Not literally. But in that moment, I wasn't just a woman discovering drugs in her trunk, I was a daughter, remembering. It started early. My parents were the kind of people who believed in appearances more than reality. Clean lawns, new patio furniture, smiles that cracked under pressure but held just long enough for photos. Christmas lights strung perfectly. Matching towels in the bathroom. 5 types of mustard in the fridge. That was their version of success. Money came and went like a breeze. Some years we had everything, some years we ate cereal for dinner, but the performance never changed. Even when the gas got shut off one winter, my mother insisted on lighting scented candles and calling it an adventure. My dad once told me, "You don't need savings if you know how to hustle." I was 8. I didn't understand it then, not really. I just knew there were things we weren't supposed to say out loud. That if you stuck to the script, smiled at the right moments, and never asked why the credit cards kept getting declined, you were being a team player. My sister played it perfectly. She sparkled. She lied easily, beautifully. She knew how to charm teachers, bosses, anyone with a wallet or a clipboard. They adored her. She was loud and wild and glittering, like a firework about to explode. My parents lit the fuse every chance they got. And me? I was boring. Uptight. Too serious. The family accountant, the problem solver, the one who took notes and paid parking tickets and cried in private. I once color-coded our family calendar when I was 12, and my mother laughed like I'd performed a magic trick. "That's your personality," she said at Thanksgiving one year. "Discipline?" I laughed too. I always did. Even when it cut. Because when you grow up like that, love starts to feel like a reward system. You think if you just stay useful, stay small, stay clean, stay quiet, someone will love you for it. Not loudly, maybe, but steadily. I became the responsible one. The fixer. When my sister got evicted, I helped her move. When my dad forgot to file taxes, I walked him through the forms. When my mom needed help navigating insurance claims, I was there. I didn't give a lot. But I gave just enough. Enough to keep the machine running. Even when they punished me for having boundaries. Even when no became synonymous with selfish. I still tried. I still hoped. That's what made this moment so bitter. Because I hadn't just been betrayed, I'd been used. Again. But this time, it wasn't over something petty or financial. This time, they had weaponized my reliability. My trust. My predictability. They knew I wouldn't question the bag. They knew I wouldn't look inside. Because that's what I'd always done. Carry the weight, no questions asked. And now? Now that weight had nearly crushed my entire family. It started with a phone call. Not the kind that begins with "Hi, how are you?" but the kind where your mother skips the pleasantries and jumps straight into the pitch. My nephew, my sister's son, was struggling. He was being bullied, they said. Withdrawn. Anxious. A therapist had recommended a change of environment. They'd found a private school. Very exclusive. Very expensive. Life-changing, my mother called it, like it was some miracle she'd plucked off a brochure. They just needed a deposit. Just a little help. Just enough to hold the spot. I knew that just too well. It was the same just they used when they needed help fixing their car, paying a bill, getting bailed out of some poor financial choice dressed up as an opportunity. It was never just. "I'm sorry," I said, gently, like I was handling glass. "I can't. We have 3 kids of our own. We don't do private school." Silence. Not anger. Worse, disappointment, cool and heavy. My mom said, "Of course. I forgot. You have rules." Because when you grow up like that, love starts to feel like a reward system. You think if you just stay useful, stay small, stay clean, stay quiet, someone will love you for it. Not loudly, maybe, but steadily. I became the responsible one. The fixer. When my sister got evicted, I helped her move. When my dad forgot to file taxes, I walked him through the forms. When my mom needed help navigating insurance claims, I was there. I didn't give a lot. But I gave just enough. Enough to keep the machine running. Even when they punished me for having boundaries. Even when no became synonymous with selfish. I still tried. I still hoped. That's what made this moment so bitter. Because I hadn't just been betrayed, I'd been used. Again. But this time, it wasn't over something petty or financial. This time, they had weaponized my reliability. My trust. My predictability. They knew I wouldn't question the bag. They knew I wouldn't look inside. Because that's what I'd always done. Carry the weight, no questions asked. And now? Now that weight had nearly crushed my entire family. It started with a phone call. Not the kind that begins with "Hi, how are you?" but the kind where your mother skips the pleasantries and jumps straight into the pitch. My nephew, my sister's son, was struggling. He was being bullied, they said. Withdrawn. Anxious. A therapist had recommended a change of environment. They'd found a private school. Very exclusive. Very expensive. Life-changing, my mother called it, like it was some miracle she'd plucked off a brochure. They just needed a deposit. Just a little help. Just enough to hold the spot. I knew that just too well. It was the same just they used when they needed help fixing their car, paying a bill, getting bailed out of some poor financial choice dressed up as an opportunity. It was never just. "I'm sorry," I said, gently, like I was handling glass. "I can't. We have 3 kids of our own. We don't do private school." Silence. Not anger. Worse, disappointment, cool and heavy. My mom said, "Of course. I forgot. You have rules." Because when you grow up like that, love starts to feel like a reward system. You think if you just stay useful, stay small, stay clean, stay quiet, someone will love you for it. Not loudly, maybe, but steadily. I became the responsible one. The fixer. When my sister got evicted, I helped her move. When my dad forgot to file taxes, I walked him through the forms. When my mom needed help navigating insurance claims, I was there. I didn't give a lot. But I gave just enough. Enough to keep the machine running. Even when they punished me for having boundaries. Even when no became synonymous with selfish. I still tried. I still hoped. That's what made this moment so bitter. Because I hadn't just been betrayed, I'd been used. Again. But this time, it wasn't over something petty or financial. This time, they had weaponized my reliability. My trust. My predictability. They knew I wouldn't question the bag. They knew I wouldn't look inside. Because that's what I'd always done. Carry the weight, no questions asked. And now? Now that weight had nearly crushed my entire family. It started with a phone call. Not the kind that begins with "Hi, how are you?" but the kind where your mother skips the pleasantries and jumps straight into the pitch. My nephew, my sister's son, was struggling. He was being bullied, they said. Withdrawn. Anxious. A therapist had recommended a change of environment. They'd found a private school. Very exclusive. Very expensive. Life-changing, my mother called it, like it was some miracle she'd plucked off a brochure. They just needed a deposit. Just a little help. Just enough to hold the spot. I knew that just too well. It was the same just they used when they needed help fixing their car, paying a bill, getting bailed out of some poor financial choice dressed up as an opportunity. It was never just. "I'm sorry," I said, gently, like I was handling glass. "I can't. We have 3 kids of our own. We don't do private school." Silence. Not anger. Worse, disappointment, cool and heavy. My mom said, "Of course. I forgot. You have rules." There it was. Clear the air. As if the air hadn't been poisoned by their choices. As if trust was a smudge you could wipe away with a wet paper towel. "We weren't sure how much you understood," my mom added carefully. I tilted my head. "You mean the bag?" They didn't answer. They didn't have to. "You put it in our car," I said. "With your grandchildren in the back seat." My mom flinched, just slightly. My dad looked down at his shoes like they held the answers. "We didn't think it'd be a big deal," she muttered. It wasn't going to be anything. Just something to help with the debt. We were desperate, my dad added. You wouldn't help. There it was again. The refrain. You wouldn't help. As if boundaries were a betrayal. As if their choices were my responsibility. You didn't just betray me, I said. You endangered our lives. Neither of them spoke. You risked your daughter. Your son-in-law. Your grandchildren. For what? A few $1,000s? My mom blinked rapidly, like she was trying to force out tears she didn't feel. My dad sighed, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, eyes still lowered. We're done, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was quiet. Final. Don't call. Don't come here. You don't get to see the kids. You don't get to spin this into some sad story about how we abandoned you. She opened her mouth. I could already hear it forming, you're being dramatic, or you'll cool off. Instead, she just said, you'll come around. You always do. I turned. I walked back inside. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't wonder if she was right. 3 days later, I went to pick up the kids from school, and they weren't there. I remember the exact moment my heart dropped. The classroom was empty except for the teacher packing up her tote bag. She looked up and smiled casually. Oh, they were already picked up, she said, like it was a favor. Your parents said you asked them to. The room tilted. I don't remember walking to the car. I don't remember driving. I just remember my fingers locked on the steering wheel so tightly they ached. I didn't even check my phone. I already knew. They were at my parents' house. Of course they were. When I opened the door, I walked into what looked like a birthday party exploded in the living room. Streamers, balloons, noisemakers. A brand new Lego set covered the carpet. The kids were buzzing on sugar, showing off new toys, mouths smeared with frosting. My dad was on the floor building something with blinking lights. My mom was slicing cake. They looked up and smiled like everything was fine. It wasn't love. It was strategy. My parents had never spoiled the kids before. Not like this. But now? Now that I'd drawn a boundary? Now they were Santa Claus with a bottomless debit card. It was affection weaponized, emotional bribery in glitter wrapping. We're leaving, I said flatly. The kids didn't understand. Of course they didn't. Grandma had said yes. Grandma had given them sugar and toys and made them laugh. Can we keep the toys? One of them asked, clutching a new stuffed bear. I hesitated. Not because I wanted to say yes, but because saying no would make me the villain. And I wasn't going to give my parents that win. Yes, I said finally. Get your things. My mom called out as we walked to the door, sing-song and syrupy. They'll come back to us. They always do. She said it like a promise. Like she still thought she could win. That night, I didn't wait for signs or excuses. I just looked at my husband and said, we have to leave. He didn't ask why. He already knew. We left within 2 weeks. No grand speeches. No dramatic exits. Just cardboard boxes, canceled mail, and quiet conversations after the kids had gone to bed. My husband's company had an office in North Carolina, near his parents', and the offer to transfer was still on the table. This time, I said yes. We didn't leave to run, we left to breathe. The house we found sat near the edge of a pine forest. The backyard smelled like earth and new beginnings. The kids enrolled in a new school. My in-laws, kind and grounded, lived 20 minutes away and actually meant it when they said, let us know if you need anything. We told no one where we went. We changed numbers. Blocked contacts. Deleted shared drives and email chains filled with fake concern and backhanded affection. It wasn't revenge, it was necessary. 6 months passed. One day, I got an email from my sister. Subject line, emergency, please read. I almost didn't. But curiosity won out. Long, frantic, rambling. Our parents had been arrested. This time, they didn't use a middleman. No daughter's car, no plausible deniability. Just their own trunk, stuffed with product, trying to cross a border like they were untouchable. They weren't. They were charged with possession with intent to distribute. A few pounds. Enough to matter. Not enough to make headlines. They took a plea deal. 4 years each. The email ended with a plea: they need help. A lawyer. Money. You have to put the past aside. I hit reply. Typed only one sentence. I showed up once. I'm not doing it again. Then I closed my laptop and went outside. The yard was quiet. Birds chirped in the trees. The kids were playing with sidewalk chalk, laughing over something only they understood. We didn't disappear. We escaped. It's not a perfect life. But it's peaceful. No more scanning the phone with dread. No more translating guilt into silence. No more flinching at the word family. And if you're wondering whether I went too far, or not far enough, you weren't there. You didn't hold that bag. I did. Sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is walk away from the people who raised you. Especially when you've spent your whole life believing that love means loyalty, even when that loyalty goes unreturned. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about the quiet bravery it takes to break a generational pattern. To say, no more, not with rage, but with clarity. It's about a woman who chose to protect her children over preserving the illusion of family. Who trusted her husband's instincts when everything in her was trained to obey, comply, and stay silent. Courage doesn't always look like grand gestures or loud defiance. Sometimes it's as simple as turning the car around. As quiet as locking a front door. As firm as saying, we're done, and meaning it. Truth isn't always welcome in families like hers, families built on performance, secrets, and transactional love. But truth, once seen, can't be unseen. And it demands action. The lesson here is simple but heavy: being the good one doesn't mean being the sacrificial one. Loyalty isn't owed to people who gamble with your life. And love should never come at the cost of your peace or your children's safety. She didn't choose revenge. She chose freedom. That is the kind of strength that rarely gets celebrated, but should. Sometimes, the truest act of love is choosing yourself, and trusting that your silence, your distance, your refusal to play along, speaks louder than any scream ever could.